Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. As usual, well, or at least sometimes, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Doug.
Hey, folks, how's it going? A little bit of a late start tonight. We've been on time for a long time now, but, what are you going to do?
It's a three-man operation.
Three monkey
operation. So if we need to hit the keys like a lot more than 1,000,000 times.
Yeah, it's just like that meme.
Yeah.
That's how I make anything online work or anything doing with technology work.
Just hit the buttons.
My family always wants to know how I did this thing or can I do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, sure, I can do the thing, but don't ask me how I did the thing because
maybe you use some sort of internal mental power to do it.
Yeah, psionics.
Yeah, something like that, perhaps.
I infiltrate the machine by sheer force of will.
Yeah, like Lawnmower Man.
Maybe.
Remember that movie?
Like Professor X with Cerebro.
Oh yeah, or that.
With means.
Or maybe you're playing a subclass of fighter, rogue, or wizard.
Maybe. Yeah. So, it says here on my screen that we're going to be talking about running D&D. Psionics always fail for this week's quests and adventures. And what exactly do we mean by that? Does it mean we hate psionics and we don't like psionics?
Well, I've been thinking about it all afternoon, and I don't know if I hate psionics, but I was like, maybe I don't really care for psionics in D&D because I never play them or really. I mean, it's neat, but I haven't really explored it much myself, except like back in the day with Dark Sun, just because like everybody was psionic.
I've always enjoyed psionics. I don't know that I've played many psionic characters. Only one of them really jumps to mind, and that was in 3rd edition. I had a soul knife, and we were playing this evil party, and so I really loved the Psionic Feats in 3rd edition. They were cool in a way. 5th edition feats are cool. Like when you had a psionic feat and you used your psionic focus on it, like you could do something. And it was cool, and it was very noticeable. Like, you could string together a couple feats and get something called Up the Walls, and you could literally run up and down walls. You could become faster. And it was all kind of like dependent on you, like holding that psionic focus.
Mm-hmm.
But so the thing is, from 2nd edition on, psionics has always been attack on thing.
Mm-hmm.
1st edition, it was a core part of the game, but it was like very weird and modular for a system that wasn't particularly modular.
Yeah, it was just like you rolled a percentile, and if your mental stats affected it by like not even full points, it was like if your intelligence is 18, you get like 0.5 plus to the chances or whatever. I mean, it's super slim.
You had all these things up, and you had like a 3% chance.
Yeah, at best.
If all the stars aligned for you,
and you get like a power. But that little modular section in the back of the player's handbook back then still forms the basis of all the other psionics, like we were talking about earlier, like all the classic powers, ego whip and intellect fortress and all that stuff.
And mental barrier. I always loved the names.
Oh yeah.
And with each edition, they kept them all. Like in some form, they paid homage to that 1st edition psionics, which was a mess. And then in 2nd edition, all the complete handbooks came out, and they did a complete psionics handbook, and that thing was a nightmare. Like, it was fun. It was amazing. I've had quite a few psionics in my games as a dungeon master. Like one of my very first games, Ted played our psionicist,
the scorpion tail, and
to this day he talks about it all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grevin.
Yeah.
Which was really cool because there was an ability called Animal Infinity where you actually just took on the traits of certain animals. And in his case, he loved taking on the traits of the scorpion and the attack. So you get the pinchers and the stinger.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had 3rd edition. And I think in 2nd, like you had subclasses, but they had more to do with your discipline of psionics.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, there was like
it was all broken up. It's like
I remember that. Yeah, like psychometry was one, and like telepathy,
psychometabolism. I think
that was the one with with the scorpion tail. Yep, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and that came out I think around the same time as Dark Sun because it was like
Yeah,
Right,
that
like
was a
Dark
big
Sun came
part.
out like right after that. It was like, hey, that thing that just came out? Here's an awesome setting where it's like, and that's probably why that was such a robust thing that people love. Because I was thinking about it as you were talking. I know I derailed you. You were going through the editions, but like when they tack them on like that, so yeah, it's always even in the Scion Handbook in 3.5, which you were getting to. There's never anything to go with it. So it's like, yeah, the character, like, you can play a Scion, and you're like, the only guy in the entire campaign setting was Psionics, you know what I mean? Like, was that
Yes.
player character. But, like, that's why Dark Sun worked so well for that, because it was just like, it was built into it.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
like,
it
there was
made a lot.
adversaries, there was, like, adventure hooks that had to do with, like,
The,
psionic stuff.
the plants were going to
Yeah.
psionically blast your mind.
It was just part of the world. So like even making adventures, was easier because it's like, somebody might quest for like a powerful psionic focus that's like out in the waste or whatever. Whereas like you just gotta make all that up whole cloth in every other edition because there's like no other stuff to go with it.
Yeah, and that was the tricky part. Now, like we would generally kind of incorporate some of that in. And third edition, it became harder because, well, we got the expanded Psionics handbook, which actually was the most balanced version of Psionics, in my opinion. Like in second edition, we've told this story over and over again, but there was like a wall, and the DM was like, "You can't get through this wall; it's impossible," or this door, right? And for whatever reason, and so one of the characters was a Scion. They used this ability, and it was like it was like kinetic absorption or something, and it lasted like 10 rounds, and for 10 rounds we just beat on this character, filling, and he just absorbed all the kinetic energy and then released it, doing over 400 points of damage. And then at that point the DM just felt like they had to concede, and they're like, the door still stands but the wall is gone.
That's funny though, everything around. That's a
Yeah,
hell of a door.
because there's just so much damage. So that being said, second edition Psionics was a little broken. First edition, if you had by the off chance did get it, it was pretty powerful, because if you faced someone with psionics, it was just bad.
In which
Or
one?
no, wait a minute. I think in first edition, it was almost worse for you if you had it. I think
In first edition, yeah, because
it
that
wouldn't
was
affect people
that
without it.
first edition. It was like almost another. You know how like in Shadowrun, a lot of people complain about. I think it's the rigor, or no, the one that jacks into the Matrix, because it's like that's like a separate game that they play, right?
Yeah,
That's what Psionics was like, because all those mental barriers, they were like, that's what you did against another person. It's like, I'm going to throw up my, intellect fortress. Well, I'm going to use my ego whip to try to beat your intellect for. I mean, it was like
there
a
was like
different
a
game.
sweet spot, right? Like if you were like had no psionics and dumb enough, like psionics didn't do anything
Yeah.
to you. But then if you were at another area, there was another spot where you were just like totally screwed if you came up with against someone that was really good at psionics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
So it
like
was,
you had no intellect fortress to put up. It was just like they
yeah,
just destroy your mind, which is pretty scary and evocative too. You think like there is a battle going on in your mind. Like, what does that look
well,
like?
and the Dark Sun books, they really did a good job of like
Yeah,
describing
that's right.
the psionic combat, which made it really cool. And then I think third edition talked about the psionic avatars more with the expanded handbook. And in that, it was like you play a scion, or you could be a wilder, which was like the
Mm-hmm.
sorcerer version.
Mm-hmm.
They had the psychic. They introduced the psychic warrior, and then they also introduced, I believe, the soul knife there. And later they would
Oh, there was like
introduce.
the elocator, and yeah, there was a bunch of prestige classes and stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I felt like third edition was the most balanced. Like it was a separate system. It was similar to spellcasting. But again, like the problem was always like, oh, it works just like magic. So I'm like, okay, well then it's just another form of magic. Or they're like, here, do you want it to be separate? Which was kind of cool. But the problem with that is nothing was built to
Yeah.
deal with that in that case. So like one of the fixes, they had spell resistance, which used to be a number. So it's like, oh, if it has magic resistance, then it has psionics resistance that's 10 lower, and it worked the same way. The same way with going magic versus psionics.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of like tried to address it a little bit, but it's always been like this clunky add-on in every single edition.
It's because it's an add-on. It's just look, man. D&D, you know me, I'm a D&D fanboy. I love all the additions and everything. You know, I don't really like complaining about the game because it is what it is. It's like I get it, and that's why it's weird because it's like we were talking before we came out. It's always has to do with PowerPoints, even in fourth edition, which you know they still kept with like it's got to be different. It's in Player's Handbook 3. You know, they get those PowerPoint. It didn't even make it to this.
They ran out of shit to put into a player's
Yeah,
handbook.
right.
Like, I guess we got to do psionics.
Yeah, I totally forgot where I was going when I started that sentence. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
I can tell you one thing, you know, and going into fifth edition, you know, they released the UA for the Mystic. Now we just got another. We just got another UA. I don't remember if they've released one or two for the Mystic at this point.
I think there was two because there was a long one and then they kind of revised it, but it was still pretty much the same. Because like one of them didn't have like the immortal and all that kind of stuff. And people really love that Mystic out there. Though I mean, there's a lot of advocates that have played and enjoyed playing that Mystic. But that's where I was going.
I suspect the Mystic is dead.
Oh yeah. I mean, if they go with the subclass, right? Although with the Artificers, it's like, well, they're not about, you know, they're not ruling out making new classes. But yeah, like
I'm just saying, they're trying to move away from it. What'll happen now is the surveys will go out, and people, if you want the Mystic back, then you have to go into those surveys and cry at them a lot because they really care about the numbers. Like if they get a 70% disapproval on these subclasses that just came out, there's a good chance you'll get the Mystic back.
Yeah, that's
and they'll go back to the drawing board. Because when we have Mike Merles on, he was so adamant about that 70%. So if, you know, in the surveys, if that number comes back, then it's something they'll keep hammering away at until they feel like they got it right.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's just always tacked on though. Like
maybe in 6th edition, they'll finally figure it out and be like, oh, maybe like we're going to make this thing. Maybe we should consider how it works. And maybe from the beginning, even if we don't make any psionic classes and powers that players can use, maybe we make some psionic monsters to just sprinkle throughout.
I'll tell you what, I mean,
already.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, they definitely, if they included it, yes, they should definitely do that. Because it's like not having any cool adversaries that have those same things unless you want to like make up a, you know, whole cloth again. But who knows? Maybe they'll have a monster menu.
Although Nathan Nerdarchy, even though he's not with Nerdarchy anymore, you can still see his work on the website.
That's a huge endeavor.
Where he reworked all of the psionic classes through the lens of 5e. And I think he looked really heavily at Sorcerer and Warlock when he did it.
Yeah, and that was like not long after the Player's Handbook came out and stuff, I think, too. I mean, that's a pretty old article. Yeah, he loves those psionics.
Even when we've done videos about what we want to see in psionics, he's like, I want to see, or what we want to see in 6th edition. He's like, I want to see psionics right in the core board.
Well, I don't blame him. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you know, it's funny with this, you know, the UA that just came out. It's like psionics is the new magic, though, too. It's like, well, all the classes have magical stuff now, including the barbarian. So what is the next thing that they, you know, it's like, let's get rid of the mystic. And it's like, we'll just start making them all have psionic things. So it kind of leads towards that sameness that, you know, you're hesitant about.
Not hesitant. I just don't like it. Like
I see both sides. I totally get where you're coming from. But at the same time, it's just like, I always try to tell myself like, well, people just enjoy the game different ways. So there's, you know, I don't have to use it in my game, those things. But, you know, and they always say that, but it's like, yeah, but you do sort of, right? I mean, especially when you play with so many different people all the time, it's just like somebody's going to come with stuff you never heard of. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, to that effect, I say, like, if you're going to do that, just get rid of classes altogether and let's just make big menus.
That's been my
There's view. Systems that do it.
The 5e D&D just turned into like a supers game with a fantasy like dressing to me. Like we've talked about it before, it's like, you know, it's not as much dependent on magic items. Like you have all the powers, and and there's an increasingly humongous menu of, you know, like little things to choose from. I mean, like even those feats, it's like, oh, you know, it used to be like, boy, how can I get my guy to have telepathy? It's like, well, you could be a ghostwise halfling, or a goo warlock. It's like, oh, you just take a feat. Now I have telepathy, and I can, but
Well,
maybe that's the only thing you want. It's like, look, I want to have a fighter, and I don't want to dip into these other things, and I don't want to be a halfling. I'll just take this feat. So I guess that's kind of cool.
well, I guess that's the other thing too that becomes a problem, right? And I think it was more prevalent in third edition than any of the others, and that is psionic items, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously, if you're playing psionic classes, you kind of want the cool stuff that goes with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of the other players would obviously want them as well, but it becomes this like weird thing, this weird extra thing to add to the game. So, like that's another area where you could add psionics into the game early. It doesn't have to be a lot of it, but if you just put it in the core rules, it prepares the players. You set the expectations, and then also you're kind of building, the blocks that subsystem is going to go upon. And if you start with the idea in mind, then maybe, when you do introduce it, it's not going to be clunky like it usually is.
And it does a couple things too, because it's like, well, on the one hand, say nobody's playing a psionic character in your game, you're probably not going to have anything psionic in your campaign world, right? Because there's nobody to interact with it. But if you do, then it's kind of like, it kind of like breaks that verisimilitude though, because it's like, well, it's just there because Sue is playing the soul knife character.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's interesting in a sense too. Like in third edition, they did try and address that a little bit in Ebron.
Did they?
Like Ebron, they did go, you know what, we're gonna have everything in here, and we're gonna make it the core part of the world. Oh yeah, the dreaming dark.
That's true. Yeah, and that is my favorite part of that setting. Oddly enough, is that stuff. Yeah, you're right.
So you could technically have no one that's psionic or does anything with psionic powers go over to that area of the world, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with it.
That's true. I guess it kind of makes it mysterious too, to think like, boy, there's stuff going on all around you on this like psychic plane. It's just only some people can notice it. It's kind of like magic in that way, I suppose. I haven't looked at the chat at all. I don't know if anybody's asking questions, but if anybody does have a question, just tag us or put question in front of it or something.
There's definitely a lot of chattering going on, but I haven't seen anyone.
People love those psionics.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of talk about the Force, of course. So yeah. Psionics is a real I mean, that's a perfect example, a real like kind of science fantasy feel too, that like a lot of people just bounce off of too. They're like, there's not too many like classic fantasy stories of psychics. There's a lot of fiction, but not like swords and sorcery and mental powers.
Well, and that's it too. That's like it's not traditional fantasy,
but D&D isn't anymore either.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We're in a place and a time where we're moving way away from Western European,
which is cool,
fantasy, and we're incorporating other things, and it's expanding. So now might probably be the time to do that. Where Ebron tried to do it a bit, and if they come out with a new setting, which I don't see them doing anytime soon, it would be cool to see what they come up with.
Yeah. But they also just give people a lot more toys to play with too, both players, GMs, and creators too. So it's like, oh, try your hand. Like, what would a psychic druid look like? I'm sure we'll get into that stuff at some point. I mean, even if off camera we're just nerds, we really do the same thing that you guys said, back in the day in the mission statements. Like, we're gonna be talking about D&D anyway. We're just turning the camera on. So
cool. Edward Fleming has a question.
Okay.
How do you add psionics to your existing monsters?
Well, I mean, the quick and dirty way is just like give them some power and say it's psionic.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that is like they don't need to make gestures or say words or need material components. It just kind of happens. I think it helps if you embed a gem in their forehead for some reason.
It's like that telegraph thing. It's like, what's up with this guy? He's got a gem in his forehead. Must be psychic.
Yeah. But in 5e, like there is no really differential to set something apart as psionic to non-psionic. In third edition, they really went heavy into the idea that psions and psionics resonated with crystals. I kind of dug that a little bit, so that aesthetic is kind of cool to add in.
Damn hippies.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, but I guess that's mechanically. But as we were talking there, I was thinking, how would I add them to your game? That's a great opportunity to mind f with the characters, though. It's like maybe they have this battle or whatever, and it's just like this crazy battle, and then it's like it turns out that was just happening in your mind. Like, especially if nobody in the party is psionic. I mean, you can really mess with people then.
Yeah, so you could, yeah, like
Like
that
you
would
and
be
detect
fun.
magic wouldn't detect it. They'd be like, I don't know where these voices are coming from, or or whatever.
That might be fun for, especially for like the initial encounter, if you're trying to set things up where
Mm-hmm.
it happens in the mindscape and the players don't know how they got there, they don't know what's going on, and
Don't
this
even tell
big,
them they are there. Just
no,
make
yeah,
it
you
like
don't
it's
tell them,
yeah.
but well, one, you can either transport them someplace else, so you don't have to say what that else is,
Mm-hmm.
or you can just have this being that seems to have power over everything around them, beyond the scope that they're used to.
Yeah, yes, yeah, because they're like controlling the environment with their mindscape. But even on a base level, like let's say you wanted to make like just psionics more prevalent, right? Take like a basilisk or something, or just any monstrosity, a manticore. That's just and you're behind the screen. It's psionic, right? So they like just have a regular encounter and a battle and everything, and whether let's say the party wins and they chop it to bits or whatever, or when it dies, it fades, and they're just like not even in the same room, and there's just like its corpse is there, dead, but there's no wounds on it or anything, and just don't even explain it. They'd be like, "What the hell just happened?" That'd be awesome, you know. And then
Or it
kind of
shatters.
like inject that paranoia, because really, I mean, psionics, like you said, it's like there's no gestures, there's no twinkling lights and stuff. It just stuff happens in your mind, and the people are messing with you. It's kind of like
Yeah,
enchanting.
for no reason, you just start bleeding out your nose and your
Yeah,
ear, as it should be.
yeah, just do weird stuff. Or take it for what about like the mirror dimension in Doctor Strange, like have it be like that, like maybe they're trapped in there, so they're like people don't even notice them anymore, because they're just like out, they're just happening in their mind. It's like he's made them invisible to
And
the world.
so, in third edition, they did the campaign setting search, and they allowed people to submit their own campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had submitted Oathgania, but then individually, I had submitted my Shattered Realm campaign setting, which was Psi Lords versus the premise was Psi Lords versus Sorcerer Kings, and an arcane magic that wasn't inborn or innate was outlawed because it was considered brooking with demons and devils.
Psionics was.
No, psionics was its own thing.
Oh.
Arcane magic that wasn't innate, like bards and sorcerers,
Okay.
wizards. Basically, wizards were the devil.
Sure.
It was the '80s all over again.
Yeah, it was the Satanic Panic.
Yeah,
Except they really were summoning demons and such.
Yeah, except for they were really doing it. Allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like from that premise, like even when we were submitting one of our own settings, we were trying to incorporate some of that stuff into the game as well and make it part of the core, so there wasn't this weird
Oh,
thing.
okay. Yeah, cool. So you kind of recognize that even back then, huh?
Yes, and I think so. I don't know if it was because of that or more so just I wanted to do something different. So I had these different power structures, and
Okay.
Psi Lords was one of them. Sorcerer Kings was another, and then we had the Ogre Thrains, which were loosely aesthetically based off of like Aztec culture,
Okay.
And ruled by Ogre Magi's.
All right. That's cool. There's a question I want to answer in the chat, but one other cool thing before I get to that, you know, exploring this idea of them as subclasses is it's a lot easier to multi-class. I mean, with the mystic or whatever having like the power points, it's just like, well, I mean, there's not any overlap with anything. You're never going to find synergy. Like, oh, if I do this, then it works with these power points. Like nothing works with it. So
Yeah,
you know
well,
what I mean?
probably yes and no. Like they'll find ways. Like
Yeah, that's true. I guess
some way,
yeah.
like, there will be something that'll be worded wonky, and then, or not wonky, but even just worded not specific enough.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, if we combine this magic thing with this psychic thing, there's normally things that would never combine.
Yeah.
But now we can.
Right. Or
Like,
they might have to make up some new keywords or something. Yeah, like a
Yeah.
different kind of attack, because something might be like, oh, whenever you make an attack, you can dump like all your power points into it and get like D8 extra damage for each one. It's like, oh, like you go crit fishing and like if I smite with that, then or something crazy. Like you do like 100 D8 damage or something.
There will always be something. And I believe there was a bit of that in the Mystic, and that's why that's kind of been delayed.
I mean, it's no surprise that like, people that whenever you see like, oh, don't get rid of the Mystic, they're always players, because that should just tell you exactly why they would get rid of it. It's just like, yeah, everybody that plays it's like, holy shit, this is awesome, because it's so incredibly powerful.
Yeah, because it's broken.
Yeah.
We love broken.
So William Beswick had a question. He said, would you treat psionic power the same as arcane power in regards to dispel and magic areas? And my answer is no.
Yeah, and that's my answer as well. And that's the problem, because there isn't enough psionics from the beginning. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work the other way well enough. Like,
okay.
So like the Achilles heel to magic is kind of psionics.
Yes.
But there's not enough psionics for it to be the Achilles heel to magic.
Yeah. But so this is like, where you have to be kind of an attentive DM, but you can also use the players to help you. So like, let's say you introduced it and, nobody really seemed to care that much about it. Like they weren't intrigued or whatever. And you could try using it, inserting it again and see how they react to it. And then just, who cares? But if it was a problem and that, like say somebody tried to cast a spell and it didn't work and they got all intrigued and they're like, what's this new power? Well, now you got yourself adventures and quests on your hands that the players generate because they want to know more about it. So it's like, well, there you go. You can have quests to like find out about this strange new power. Like, how can we counteract it? And you can make up like magic items and quests and NPCs and stuff to go along with it. And that's like player directed. So I think that'd be an interesting way to go, of course.
Rick Grayson, Psionics should have nothing to do with the weave. What is this weave you speak of? The weave is only a thing if you play Forgotten Realms. The rest of the multiverse.
I mean, it's a pretty common concept. You're just like pulling threads of magic. But yeah, I get it. Exactly. Yeah, and it was based originally to have a sci-fi element based on the novel. Yep, if you read Appendix N in the first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook, I'm sure it has plenty of sci-fi. I think that's where the Mind Flayers came from and all that stuff. It's like sci-fi, like old pulp sci-fi things.
J.R. Wakefield says Psionics has always been weaker than magic, but it has higher versatility. I don't think so. Not in second edition. In second edition, there were so many loopholes to break the game with it. It was insane.
Well, that's the tough thing about design and just game design and making a company based on it in general is because, like, look at Magic the Gathering. I mean, it's like it's very complicated to make new cards and stuff because of how it interacts with everything else. Like you were saying, like there could be some way something's worded like that nobody knows them. And then they're playtesting like, oh shit, like we didn't realize, it would interact like this. So it's very difficult. It's challenging.
Now, I will say, like, I like the way Psionics worked in third edition because I feel like Jay was right. Like, it doesn't so much it was weaker, but it just was more versatile, and you could choose how to spend the power that you had. Like, you could blow it all at once if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. That's it. You're done for the day until you can recharge.
Do you think it worked better in third edition also because that third edition in particular was like so crunchy that like adding that on there was just like whatever, it's just another thing of math I got to do? Wasn't like that weird in that regard? Do you think that had anything to do with it?
I don't know. So Jay says Psionics never had wish, auto reality, or any completely over the top power.
Well, yeah, I mean third edition wizards were like reality manipulators, so he does have a point.
So I must say we never played super high games. Like we would always peter out at the mid-level, probably like 7th to 10th. So I don't have the top end of the game memorized from every edition.
I definitely don't. I barely have ever played many games above like 12th level tops. That's about it for me.
But so that being said, though, like those reality altering powers in the earlier editions, they can be very monkey polish, especially the way DMs ran the games. Like, sure, you could wish for anything, and your DM very well may give it to you, but like you're like writing a contract when you made a wish spell. You gotta like know every word that you're using and check it twice. Like I know players that they would write it out and then they would like crawl over it to see what they wrote and to make sure there wasn't any way the DM could screw them.
But they always could. I mean, that's it's like that's what the DM. I mean, whether it's a dick move or not, you just have you're the final arbiter of what happens in your in the campaign.
Yes, I was exaggerating a little bit. You had a limit on how many you could spend in a single manifestation, but you could max it out every time, and you would go through your points really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I observed. And in clutch situations, it made sense to do that. Other times, you're like, oh, now I have to get through the rest of the day.
Yeah, I'm just a guy with a crystal and a walking stick.
But like the thing that I liked the most was probably like the psionic focus concept and psionic feats. How they like it was a feat that would do something, but then when you're focused, it would do something more. Or to use it, you had to be focused.
What were the psionic items like? I don't remember. I mean, I know there was some, but like, do you remember anything?
They were mostly just magic items, but with they were psionic instead.
Oh, really? And they might do something that complemented like a sign. It's like, oh, when you use this, you regain like a PowerPoint or something like
that. Yes, there was definitely items like that.
Yeah,
there was definitely items that I believe there are items that would lower the cost, but then I also believe there are items that you could just store points in, and use as a reservoir. Matter of fact, I believe like your crystal thing that you could get as a scion, one of the abilities you could do was use it to store points in it. And
really?
Points.
So like before you take a rest or whatever, it's just like, well, I didn't use all my points. I'll just put them in here.
I don't remember the exact, but like there's different abilities.
I bet you Milo does. Milo Hobotep probably remembers the exact.
Maybe. Or Michael, they're citing.
I'm calling you out. Give me the numbers.
In the Mystic, didn't they bring back the concept of the psychic focus?
I gotta be honest with you, I didn't read that thing I've been thinking about it all day. It's like maybe I just I think it's a cool concept. I just don't really. I'm not super enthusiastic about it. I'm not like, oh, I want to see what it's all about. It just doesn't really. I don't like Jedi either. That's I'm like you, and I think Star Wars is cool and all that stuff. Like the least interesting thing about it is like Jedi and Sith. It's weird.
When I play Star Wars, I'm very, very anti-Jedi. I don't know why.
When I played the Old Republic,
I'm the only one in the group usually that's like, screw Jedi.
When I played the Old Republic MMO, I was an Imperial operative, and I decided early on, like, this guy just hates Force users. He was totally ruthless in general, but like if there was any mission against this, like a Jedi or something, like, yep, I'll take it. And I would always take the option to just like assassinate them, and it's just I don't know. I just don't like that part of the story. But anyways.
I digress.
Yeah.
But the new UA, we get a bunch of stuff going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
We get a bunch of new spells.
I do like that. I didn't really look too specifically at them, but
yeah, I read it all the other day. I'll have to read it again because it's a UA and we'll be covering it. So I'll read it again, and then we'll probably read it, during the video.
Yep, and then I'll have to write a post about the video, and so I'll have to read it then. And then those are so hard, man, because it's like I'm sitting there planning it with you. So especially when it's like a list of like, here's the things we picked. It's like, well, those are the ones I picked too. So what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. That's your burden, man. That's your burden. That's why we pay you the big bucks.
Yeah, but this kind of reminds me of the question we answered last night too about playing vampires and werewolves. It's like, when people that really like that stuff, I'm curious, like, what is it that you like about it? Because like I played a sorcerer in Ted's game that was like a higher level game, and I made him like I was thinking of him as like a psionic guy. Just took a bunch of mental powers, and he had like 6 constitutions, so he was just like frail and weak. And I just imagined that he was using. I mean, they were mental powers and spells, so you can get that flavor. So I'm curious, like, what is it that people are looking for? Is it the flavor of like using your mind to do these things because you could just envision it that way? Or is there like specific things like, Ted's animal affinity? It's like there's got to be people out there that like, I just love the idea of like my arms turning into pincers and stuff.
Yeah.
What are you really doing there though? Are you like using your mind to literally like control like the molecules of your body and transform them into pincers?
I think so.
That's pretty sweet. So that's like Apocalypse from X-Men sort of thing where you're just like controlling the molecules of your own body. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, just not as quite on as a strong a level. So Lyndon wants to know, do you feel like Psionics and stuff from Tome of Battle have a place in 5e? Just jumped in. So to be honest with you, Tome of Battle in 3rd edition is when I think we tuned out at that point. Like we were playing, and we're playing regularly, but we kind of like just were burnt out on all the books. Like at that point, we had bought so many Wizards of the Coast books, so many Mongoose Publishing, so many Swords and Wizardry books, so many Necromancer games. At that point, like I feel like there was like a couple books towards the end, or maybe those books came out after they announced 4th edition too.
No, it was like, well, yeah, they might have been. Yeah, I think yes.
It was very fun anymore. Yeah. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was a distinct point where I just stopped buying 3rd edition books, and it was like just before those books came out.
I liked that book a lot, and I see a lot of that in 5th edition. Not specifically, but just like the ideas, some of the concepts. And I thought it was really cool. Of course, I made a bunch of characters that I never played using, but it was a cool book. I liked all the maneuvers. Brian Smith, it's Dwargar, not Dugar. That's what Dr. Cowboy Viking says too, so take it up with him.
What does that guy know? What's he got, a PhD in that?
A couple of them, I think.
Virology or something?
Essentially, yeah.
Daryl T. Jones, is it possible that I've never seen you live? Weird.
Wasn't he on the live chat?
He is.
Did you not watch yourself?
Yeah, Daryl is doing maps for us and did a bunch of the cool Kickstarter page stuff for us.
Hell yeah.
Will be helping us out with the convention as well for visuals. And he also has a cool game, tabletop game, Daubers Quest for the Key, which I just purchased on Amazon tonight, actually. Oh, yeah? I was like, hey, he also has a 5e version of it as well.
Oh, that's right, yep.
I don't know if that's out yet or if that's still.
Tell us, Daryl.
But yeah, so I was like, hey, we can play some Daubers, either the RPG or the tabletop game. He's like, oh, I got to see if I have enough room in my bag. I'm like, well, where can I buy this said game? And we'll just have it here.
Oh yeah, we can play it next week at PAX.
Yes, that's it,
man.
We're gonna have that giant Airbnb, mine as well.
That place is off the hook. I can't wait.
Oh yeah, Milo, I absolutely had I had the Dream Squad press stuff. Did Monty Cook write for them? I feel like Monty Cook wrote for them, but I could be mistaken. Towards the tail end. But I'm pretty sure I picked up some of the stuff that he did. But man, I feel like that
paid attention to who did what back then.
I generally didn't, but at a certain point I started paying attention to like 2 people. Monty Cook and Bruce Cordell, because whenever they were involved, it was like they would do the weird stuff.
That's true. Bruce Cordell sounds familiar because he wrote like what's the one that I like a lot? The first one in Tales from the Yawning Portal. It was like the first 3rd edition module. I can't think of it now. With the tower. The Citadel? Yeah, Sunken Citadel.
Sunless Citadel?
Sunless Citadel, yeah. But it was sunken. That's why it was sunless.
That'll do it every time.
Any thoughts?
And also Daryl is streaming his Daubers 5e game too over on Unmade Gaming's channel.
Oh, it's on Mike's channel?
It is.
Oh, cool.
So folks can check that out, see what that's about.
Brian Smith wants to know, any thoughts on possible overlap between Ki or Kai and Psionics? He feels like there could be some sweet team combo
Doug,
attack.
it's pronounced Ki or Chi. Never they pronounce this Kai.
Do I think there's possible overlap? Sure. I mean, you know, actually, that might be, I'm surprised they haven't explored that. Like, well, why not use Ki?
Yeah,
right?
that would actually be kind of cool.
I mean, it kind of makes it's similar, right?
That would be kind of cool if they based it off of Ki or Chi points.
You can make the 4 elements monk better.
Oh yeah, if you were to multi-class.
Yeah, be like, oh wow, I have like 40 points. Fireball.
My son. So I play a game with my son and my nephew, one of his friends, and my wife. And he made a turtle, and he started off his way of the 4 elements, right? Even though I can be very opinionated, and when we do stuff on video, we come off, with strong opinions, but that's not really how we play the game. So when he chose that, I'm like, whatever. Like, it is the weakest one, but I don't really care about that while I'm playing. And then he came back to me like, a week or 2 later. He's like, you let me pick the weakest one. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, every time I use my key points, I'm going to be out of them right away, and I won't be able to do anything. Well, yeah, that's kind of how it works, but you can throw fireballs.
You can throw a fireball.
A fireball every short rest.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they only need 30 minutes to get them back.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. So what you do is you have to have the wizard, which they don't have, ritually cast Tensor's floating disc, and he can meditate on it as they move around.
Yeah, yeah.
And hopefully there's 30 minutes between fights.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll be good to go, right? So it's like it's your key turret. You just sit him on the Tensor's floating disc, and after the 30 minutes go by, you just tap him. Yo, bud, it's time. Fireball.
Yeah. Yeah. He just opens his eyes. Yep. I'm exhausted. I need my key. Yeah, but that would be interesting to. I mean, because that's already a system that exists, so you don't have to have another new resource. I like that idea. And I mean, monks are kind of, they're mind over matter, right? So it's similar.
Yes. Huh. That is an interesting way to go, and I like it. I always felt like there was a lot of overlap between the monk and the psionic classes. Like you were saying, like the soul knife. You're like, the soul knife, it's rogue. Why isn't it a monk?
Mm-hmm. I think it was Ted. He was actually seemed like.
Oh yeah.
He seemed like legit, Ted. Like angry about it, like upset.
Oh yeah. Well, so Jay says if you make side points recover like key points, then Psionics will be too powerful. Not if you scale back what they do.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be, or they don't get as many points, and you kind of like make them similar to the Warlock, where, like, I mean, if that's your argument, then you must hate the Warlock. Because they max out at 4 spells. Eventually, I think they get 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
So remember, folks, please put in question in front so that we know that you're actually talking at us.
Yeah.
So Milo says Bruce Cordell, hyper consciousness.
What's that?
I don't know what that is. It's just a word. But he, unless you're referring to the strange, that's kind of like what
maybe that's
about.
The thing he was talking about earlier, the Dream Scarred Press
product.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. If only we were sitting at a machine that could tell us these things with the push of a button.
Yeah.
Hyperconsciousness Explorations in Psionics.
Oh, it's a book.
Appears to be a thing on Amazon.
So I've cut you off several times when you're trying to talk about like the other things, like the feats and the spells. What do you think about those? I kind of like the feats. At first I was like, eh. Then I was like, all right, I can see that if it's just like you want to have. It's kind of like Magic Initiate. It's just like you don't want a multi-class. You just want some special little thing that your character does. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
There's only two of them, right? It's like telepathy and
telepathy and telekinetic.
yeah.
Like you can have a mage hand and you can shove people around, but only 5 feet.
Well, hey,
It's
yeah.
half feet, so
Do you get a stat bump?
you do intelligence.
Okay.
Both of them are. And then, the other one, telepathy, you get proficiency in a skill, and you can communicate telepathically with any creature you see within 30 feet of you. As long as it understands a language, it can respond back. So it's a way to, yet another way to get telepathy, I believe, or
Yeah.
to be kind of telepathic. I think there's several races that give it to us now.
Telepathy?
Yeah, at least 2, right? Kalistar.
Do the Gith?
Ghostwise Halfling.
Neither of the Gith do, right?
I don't remember.
They get the mage hand, though, because it's supposed to be like lifting it. So, yeah, that's a Gith. No, Giths are Yankees are the.
So, I mean, the telepathic is pretty nice, especially if you're playing a druid.
Could talk to those ice toads, because they have a language.
You could talk to those ice toads. But I feel like anything that gives you telepathy is just a great way to break the moon druid.
Yeah.
Because literally, like, the most limiting thing about wild shaping and being a druid is your ability to communicate.
I mean, you'd think after a while, though, your companions would get to know your. I mean, I know, I can kind of understand my cat and stuff. I mean, you're still intelligent, right? So, I mean, could you like draw in the dirt with your paw?
Oh yeah, I would allow things like that if I'm the DM.
If you wanted to make the Psionics another one-trick pony, just make it a Warlock subclass. I presume they're going to make subclasses for all the classes.
Well, they actually, no. One of the subclasses they had just put out, the Warlock one.
Oh,
felt very much like that, right?
And then there was the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer too.
Or maybe it was a sorcerer, but one of them felt very much like that.
Yeah, because the Warlock was the Lurker of the Deep. But yeah, it's the sorcerer. That was where that Mind Sliver spell was in there too, I think, wasn't it?
There was a.
Oh man, if there's a bard class, I bet you it'll be like a mesmerist, like I got like with a hypnotist.
Oh yeah, because it was a sorcerer because they got sonic spells.
That'd be cool, like a bard hypnotist. Get like the when you're starting equipment, when you're starting things, it's like a stopwatch, so you can just watch this.
You can have the stopwatch if you want. I'm going with a top hat with this. The spinning
you get it both, yeah. Yeah, totally. Brian Smith has eaten edibles and been able to understand his dog's thoughts. Swear to God.
Actually, his dog's just looking at him like, oh my God, my owner's tripping balls again. And he's looking at me weird. I'm nervous.
Maybe the dog's on a live chat somewhere saying that he ate edibles and he was able to understand his human's thoughts.
No, it's like, I've eaten edibles and I still can't understand.
I just want treats and to go outside. This guy's sitting here thinking he's reading my thoughts.
And I just got to pee.
Yeah.
Maybe. Toasty Z, are you guys talking about Soul Knife Monk with the new Rogue? What do you think about that?
Well, for that kind of deep dive, you're gonna have to wait for the inevitable Nerdarchy video. We're just talking about Psionics in general.
Yeah. But yeah, I will spoilers. Ted was disappointed the Soul Knife was a rogue subclass and not a monk. Which they always felt like they were a monastic tradition, kind of in the earlier books.
I don't know. I mean, I could see like a group of like assassins and stuff that like hone their mind into the focus in a blade that they can manifest, like Psylocke from X-Men. Yeah. She was a ninja assassin.
Which she was a ninja. Which ninja kind of.
Yeah, I suppose. But hey, but since think about it this way, since it's not a monk subclass, right? You can become a rogue soul knife and then multi-class into way of shadow monk, and then you can really get into some hijinks.
Can, but I guess so. The biggest problem with the psychic warrior, the soul knife, and the psionics tradition is subclasses are just a little bit of flavoring when it comes to the actual classes. You don't
You
actually
think?
you don't actually get that much from them. Most of it still will come from your core class. And in the case of this, I don't know if it's enough to really make you feel like you're that thing, especially if you're talking about multi-classing, because then you're going to get even less of it.
Well, I mean, I don't remember exactly, but I mean, the soul knife's like the first thing you get, right?
Yeah, that's the main thing.
And it deals your sneak attack damage, I think. Or I
You
mean, it can.
You can.
Is it psychic damage if you do?
No, it is. The blade does psychic damage, but your
What would the sneak
sneak
attack?
attack is not.
What kind of damage would it be?
I think the sneak attack is. It's just unnamed, I guess.
No,
I don't know.
there's.
You might have to refer back. It doesn't say though. Like
Yeah.
you'd have to probably refer to sneak attack and see what sneak attack says
Mm-hmm.
the damage is.
Probably just says when you deal, when you have advantage and you deal, blah 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 attack. It probably says like it was a weapon attack.
But when you
What is it considered? Is it considered a melee weapon? Does it say?
Yeah, it's got properties.
Okay.
I know it has the finesse, the thrown, finesse, light, and thrown properties.
You can throw it?
Yes.
Oh. Well, yeah, so it would just do, and it does psychic damage, so yeah, that's what your sneak attack, it just does whatever kind of damage you're doing.
Then it's all psychic, and all you should do is hunt down totem barbarians.
So if you multi-class, you'd still have that core thing. Like, I don't remember what else they got as they went out. Like, what do rogues get? I don't even know when they get 3. What else? Like 7? Is that the next time they get an ability?
For the rogue, it is 3rd, 9th, 13th, 17th.
So what's the soul knife get at those?
So we're gonna go into that anyway.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Tell me, Dave. Read it to me.
You're working me here.
Chew up those last 5 minutes.
Now you'd be like, now you really won't have anything to talk about. You know, when you write it.
True. Never considered the Astral Self Monk was pretty psionic-y.
Yes, I felt a little bit like that as well.
I think it's fair to say like none of the UA really point towards a product per se. Like, we were thinking like with that last batch, like what would these all be? And it's like they're probably just playtesting all kinds of stuff. I mean, they hired Kate Welch and Dan Dillon, and they got Dungeon Commander. I don't know their real name. As in plays now, they beefed up the staff. So
let's face it. Do you really want a real name if people just call you Dungeon Commander?
No. Good point. So yeah, I mean, and somebody had mentioned like, oh yeah, it was Milo. Does this bode well for Dark Sun? I really don't know. I mean, they put out a bunch of stuff this year. I mean, they dipped their toe into Greyhawk with Ghost of Saltmarsh, and
honestly, I feel like it just depends on what the sales do, because they're putting out more and more products. So my understanding from the way they've been doing things, like they've been very methodical about how they do it, and they have to show. My guess is they have to show a certain amount of productivity for Hasbro to continue to consider them viable.
Sure.
And so what my guess is, like, they're probably testing and being like, okay, we put out X amount of products last year or this quarter, probably more like this quarter.
Yeah.
How did they perform? Okay. And then, the following quarter, we put that out plus, one more. Did they still perform it the same, or did it kind of cannibalize each other?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as they find ways to do that, and we've seen it too, because they've used other properties as well. Stranger Things, Rick and Morty, Acquisitions Inc.
Yeah,
that Acquisitions Inc. is that far from D&D anyway, but they're using these other brands to kind of like branch out and put out even more D&D products. Like it felt like this year they put out a ton.
Yeah, I'm in the industry and I can't even keep up with it. It's like I haven't even really like absorbed, like Ghost of Saltmarsh and stuff. And there's been like 4 things since then, and the UA. It's tough, but there's a lot of people out there and they crave content and they're obviously playing it. But yeah, like I think you make a good point. It's like, well, businesses got to increase stuff, so they're probably like, okay, well, you put out two, like you said, products. Did they do about the same? Did they both kick ass? You know.
Yeah, because I feel like if everything keeps performing really well, they'll just keep putting more stuff out.
I mean, it doesn't really hurt the game, right? It just gives people more options.
Well, so I guess one of the things they're always kind of dealing with the the backlash of the really vocal minority sometimes,
Yeah.
where people will complain about too much product, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in the early days of 5e, they really took that to heart and listened. But now, having talked to staffers and seeing what they're doing, they're also very they're very tied deeply to the statistics.
Mm-hmm.
So they might be listening, but they might be looking at the numbers and being like, well, screw you guys, because it doesn't matter what you say, people are still buying. So
And I mean, a lot has changed since 5e launch. I mean, a lot more people play because of streaming. I don't think anybody predicted that would happen, right? But but the thing is like I wanted to speak to like a lot of people, they do like kind of like grouse that there's too many products, and I see a lot of people talk about like how great the hobby is, and it's like, oh, it's so cheap to get into. I need the player's handbook, and but people feel compelled to buy stuff. You could download the basic rules, get a dice app, and go to websites like our own to plug it, and like a bunch of other people too, and play for the rest of your life and never have the same game twice for no money at all. So it's just like, I mean, you don't have to add all these things to your game. So I guess in that regard, it's like, I don't care what they do. I mean, it's just cool. And to people like, oh, I want to play Dark Sun, just play it then, man. I mean, it's just the setting, just cobble it together if you want to do that. So yeah, if they came out with stuff, it'd be cool. I'd like to see their take on it, but it's not preventing me from enjoying the game the way I like. Nor is it by having a bunch of stuff.
So one more question.
Sure.
It looks like before we head on out.
Yep.
From Carlos, did you guys already discuss the choice of new class features versus dedicated class?
A little bit.
So we discussed it a little bit. We're going to me and Ted will get into more in depth on that when we cover the UA. It's going to be another super long UA, like when we did the variants for classes. It's probably going to be like the same length or longer. We'll see. We probably won't go over like every single spell, but we'll kind of like go over the ones we like and highlight stuff. But that's probably one of the things we'll really talk about, dedicated class versus what they're offering and how we feel about that.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it broadly in the scope of like the history of Psionics in D&D, like and how it was different in editions earlier in this video. So when we're done here, just rewind it and it's there from the beginning.
There you go. But with that, I think it's that time for us to head on out. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will be back next week, Monday for the patrons. If you're a patron at any level, you can hang out with us. It's a smaller, more intimate setting. Or, we will be back Tuesday, so you can watch then or do both. The option is yours. So until next time, stay nerdy.
You have to hit the button.